All right. Here we go. Back again. Lockdown special. Welcome to the other side of the coin. I've got myself, my Manhandle CFC, who's becoming my partner in crime in these lockdown specials. And people are loving it. People are loving him. People are loving this. So we're going to continue. And I've got myself a new guest. You guys would have seen a lot of his tweets in recent times, and he's got really, really good opinions out there. It's my man Jay. First of all, Jay, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm very excited to be here. It's great to finally meet both you guys over this. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Nice. Keep that buzz going. As I said, I don't really need to introduce Manhandle CFC. He's my man. Everyone knows that. So we're gonna start this show, and I want to start it with one particular player that's deemed me as racist in the last 24 to 48 hours, and it's the man Onana. Now, I want to give you guys a bit of background before we get into this. So I've never actually tweeted anything about Onana. I've always tweeted about Kepa and how I wanted to back him. I've always been quite objective as well. Whenever I've seen Kepa do poorly, I've actually tweeted that stuff out. And, when he was dropped, I backed Lampard's decision. But I've seen in recent times there's been a lot of growth in the Onana bandwagon. Everyone's talking about him. Honestly, I'm not going to lie to you too. I don't watch too much of Dutch league, and I don't get to watch too much of Onana. But from what I've seen when we've played against them, and a little bit of clips here and there when Champions League's on, I personally didn't think there's talks about some certain parts of our fan base wanting to have Onana replacing Kepa. So I want to first of all start off with Jai, since he's new. I want to break this subject down into three different areas, right? First of all, what I want to hear from you is what's your thoughts around Onana? Forget about whether he can replace Kepa or any other information. Tell us and the viewers that are listening, what's your perception on Onana? And is he really, really that good? Lots of people throwing stats and whatnot. Tell me more about him.
I think he obviously is quite a good keeper. You see him I'm trying to base more off the Champions League. I've gone out of my way to go back over some Ajax games this season so I can watch him play as well as watching Ziyech. Because it's very easy to say with Ziyech, he's going to be fantastic. Look at the dribbles, look at the key passes, the assists, the goals, but then he does play in a weak league, right? And he plays for the best team in that league, give or take, one or two other sides. The same applies with Onana, right? In the league, he's going to be decent. He concedes around 0.75 goals every game, so that's really quite decent. But you have to temper it with the fact that he plays for the best side in a weak league. He'll play against teams that are really not very good, relatively consistently. In the Champions League, he's been good. He's a good age. He's a good build. He's athletic. He's great with his feet. He's very confident. He likes to step out of his box. I've seen him make a couple of mistakes, but that's natural for a keeper that's learning to play with their feet so often. With regards to bringing him to Chelsea, I think it'd be a really interesting shout. I saw Miz tweeting out that, Matisse tweeting out that it would be great competition. I did agree, actually, that it would be nice to have that competition. And I think what would happen is if he came to Chelsea, which I still don't know if he would, it would be a really competitive 6 to 8 months between the two goalkeepers. And I think once you had an outcome and a winner from that, the other one would then leave in the summer, and it would give us a starting goalkeeper for sure. But I have backed Kepa recently, and I backed him last season, the season before. He has been poor last season. He was. The defense has been inconsistent as well, but I really would like to see Kepa come through because I believe he's got such good talent and natural ability, but he's such a confidence player that when it's so low, I find it hard to believe he's going to build it back up to maybe where he was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, I feel like he's a charismatic player as well. When I see Kepa, I feel he's got a lot of charisma about him. I know a lot of people look down on him in regards to the situation we had with Sarri last season, how he didn't want to come off. But for me, that, as crazy as it sounds, like that shows gutsy. That shows someone who wants to, I want to be here. I want to prove a point. I like that kind of character. So
Yeah,
I don't
totally.
know if Onana has that.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that stems into other conversations that we've had online about other players, right? With Tammy Abraham, for example, when we bring in another striker, if we do, it's not an issue to bring in another top quality striker. It's just competition. Drogba managed to rise above when Torres came, when Anelka was there. It's how it's meant to be at a top level club. So Kepa, if he's as fiery as he comes across, and if he's as confident as he portrays himself to be, then competition should be no concern for him, because that's just what it is to be a professional footballer at the highest level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, hold that thought. What I want to ask Manhandle CFC is competition I can understand and I can accept. And I think we should have competition. Now, I want to ask you two things. One, people are actually been talking about not just competition, but replacing. That's when I get all fiery. I'm like, well, there's other players that we need to replace. Kepa shouldn't be the first one to be talked about to be replaced. So I want you to give me some thoughts around that, topic about replacement. And the second question is, which is what I touched on, that why would we think about replacing him when we've got such a shaky defense that we've seen this season? And even partly last season, I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, our defensive stats look really good. We had a lot of, clean sheets when Sarri was here." But I wasn't utterly convinced at times. I think we got lucky that we didn't concede, but I wasn't convinced between Rudiger and Luiz all the time. So, talk to me about the whole replacement part, and also, is it fair that we're talking about replacement when clearly we've got issues with defense?
Yeah, I think it certainly doesn't help not having a couple of centre-backs in front of you that play every game. I think last year he was certainly better, but he did, as you say, have Rudiger and Luiz, who, yes, not fantastic at times, but at least he had a centre-back pairing that was going to be in front of him every game. Because as keeper, you need to know if a defence is if you're going to come out and collect the ball, if the defence is going to clear it, you need clear communication lines. Bearing in mind, we've used 4 centre-backs throughout the season and it's not been consistent. It's very difficult as a keeper. And Jay made a very good point about the confidence. He's a massive confidence player. Yeah. And you can see towards the end of the time before Lampard kind of brought Caballero in, he was really struggling. And man management nowadays, people talk a lot about that. And I think Lampard's done really well. But Kepa, for me, I think it was certainly a challenge to drop him. He left him out for 5, 6, 7 games, whatever it was. He came back really strong against Liverpool and Everton. But maybe at the time, I just think he needed an arm around him. And I know he was backed in the media, but I just think maybe sticking with him, and as I say, just backing him a little bit more in terms of playing him might have done better. I know, as I say, I go back to my point of he came back really strong and it is clearly a challenge. But I think the issue with Chelsea is, and you've touched on it, about replacing. Yes, he's been there for 2 seasons. And, we're quick to judge other players off 1 or 2 seasons. I know Kovacic's got a lot of slack after 1 average season. So, yes, he's had 2 seasons, but we spent a lot of money on him. He's still, 24, 25. He's got a long career ahead of him in the game. And you don't pay that sort of money for a keeper and then just discard him after a couple of years.
7-year contract. 7-year contract.
Especially given the defence in front of him. If he'd have had a decent defence for 2 years, maybe you can point some fingers at him. But to kind of go with the replacement kind of thing, I certainly don't think Onana would be brought in to be a replacement. I think he would be to add competition. Whether that's the correct thing to do, I'm not so sure, because we talk about competition in every part of the pitch. That's fantastic. I want world-class players or great players in every position, ideally 2. Because that means we're going to be challenging for all the major trophies. But we've other teams, I won't use an example, but just as Chelsea, every time we've had 2 keepers that you were not entirely sure who the number 1 was. We've had Cech and Cudicini, Cech and then Courtois. It never really worked out fantastic for us. Sometimes we played in the cup, sometimes we played in the league. And for me, just from past experience, I'm not so sure if it's the right way to go. And again, Jay made some great points about Onana in the Dutch league. It's not the strongest league. He hasn't been tested to his full capacity. If we were to replace Kepa or provide competition, we've got to have a keeper coming in that we know is going to come in and be top draw and be the sort of keeper that we need to be. And I'm not entirely convinced. Again, I've watched the Champions League games. I wasn't falling in love with the guy. I wasn't, saying, 30 million euros or pound, let's sign him. So for me, I think it's a really difficult one. But yeah, it depends what we bring him in for. Competition, replacement, it all depends. And obviously, we don't know what the board's thinking. So it's a tough one. Yeah,
of course, man. But let's dig a little bit deeper into this. I want to go back to Jai on it. One of the issues that people have been talking about this season in regards to Kepa, and I want you to think about this question that I'm going to say and sort of picture where you see Onana in all of this. They've been talking about Kepa and his weak wrist, that he doesn't command the box. When crosses come in, he's not there to save the defenders. We seem to blame the CBs, but where's Kepa? He should be protecting the CBs. Now, here's my issue. I've got, as you guys know, I do a lot of threads on footages, and I've got a lot of footage where some of our set piece defending, yes, Kepa could have come out and helped out, but there's a lot where I don't think he could have done anything. Like, it really should have been upon the centre-backs or the back four to really align themselves and command their position. Needed a leader to really guide in those situations. So I don't really know how we are completely blaming Kepa all the time. I'm not going to disagree that Kepa is weak in coming out and collecting. So what I want to ask you, Jay, is it fair to keep bashing Kepa about these sort of things? And is Onana far superior to him in this department?
There are lots of aspects of those questions that you need to break down in order to understand and sort of come up with a coherent answer. Firstly, with Onana, there's a belief in the players in front of you when you're part of a cohesive system. You see it at Liverpool, and you saw it at Ajax in the Champions League when they're going all the way to the semi-final, because let's not forget, they didn't even get out of the groups this year. They went into the Europa League, right? So they had a really great season 2 seasons ago, cohesive unit. They had De Ligt, who was one of the standout centre-backs in the world that season. They also had Daley Blind, who perfectly fits that system. It's a confidence in the system as well as the players in front of you. For Kepa, he's come into a new side that's consistently changed system and personnel. So the personnel in front of him don't necessarily have complete confidence in him because they don't know that relationship takes an incredible amount of time. You look at what we had with Terry and Cech, and then that other centre back was Carvalho or Cahill. That relationship took a considerable amount of time to cement because we had Terry and Cech for 10 years playing together, and we were winning. So, no, it's not fair that he takes criticism to such an extent that he does. I think that Chelsea fans, especially online, are very reactionary. But I think that's probably the same with most.
We need to repeat that. That's going to be tweeted. That's my tweet today.
Chelsea fans are a reactionary bunch as I've seen, but he needs to take some criticism. But it needs to be constructive, and it also needs to be fair. With Onana plays in a weaker league, in a stronger side, with a system that is bred into them from as soon as they walk through those doors. Chelsea's not like that. Chelsea don't play. We play for trophies. We don't play for the system. This is the change that maybe Lampard's trying to bring in. We can't necessarily see his style completely now, but we might see it over the next 2 to 3 seasons. But at Ajax, you walk through the doors, you know how you play. You play with your feet, you play in triangles. It's Cruyffian football. It's bred through from the under 7s, under 6s, all the way through to the men's first team. That's why when players like De Jong and De Ligt go, they have replacements from the youth teams to go straight into the side, and there's no issue because they play through that football. It's like La Masia at Barcelona, although they've maybe not brought certain players in like they should have recently. So Kepa takes a lot of stick, he takes a lot of flack, but he needs time with a partnership in front of him that the three of them can gel and there's confidence there, right? And with set pieces, our organisation's atrocious. It's shocking. We have big players. We got Zuma when he plays is massive.
Yeah.
He's great in the air. Rudiger is a big guy. He's great in the air. You know, we have these players, and
We
it's
got
just
height. We got plenty of
oh
height.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just I think the system for defending corners is not good, and I think that when we concede a goal, as we saw when Caballero was the keeper, it's maybe not actually the keeper's fault, but it's a fault of the system and it's a fault of the personnel in those positions that they're playing. I don't think Onana's going to be able to change that. He's just going to be another person that's going to have to deal with the constant changing of personnel until we get a
The
cemented.
incompetencies, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that we need to have two centre backs permanently there that never really rotate, but we need to have three centre backs, I think, that predominantly play those two positions, and then a fourth one that can get brought in through injuries. But we need to have a set two or three centre backs, I think, that can then work on their relationship with the full-backs playing into the midfield, but can also work on that understanding with the goalkeeper, so that there's a confidence in that area. And when Chelsea play with confidence, we are one of the best teams in Europe. You can see it when we come back against Ajax. You can see how we play when we play. When we beat Spurs 2-0, right? We're playing with confidence. We're playing with a bit of swagger almost because we know what we're doing. But when it seems as though when a corner comes in, we have no idea what we're doing.
We are nothing.
Every time a set piece comes into the box, I'm just like, we're going to concede, and we often do. So I don't think it's fair that Kepa takes all the criticism, but reactionary Twitter fans need a scapegoat. It's the same for every team. It's like Pogba at United. He's their best player, but he gets a lot of stick. I think they need to really understand and scrutinise in an effective way, not just in a hateful bashing way. Set piece defensive routines, the strength of the players in the centre back positions, and Kepa needs to work on a few things. I think maybe,
of course,
but I don't think it's fair that he takes all the flack, and I don't think Onana's going to alleviate the situations that Kepa's found himself in this season.
Man, honestly, I wish I could just replay this over and over again to all the people that has bashed CFC Manhandle and myself over the last 24 to 48 hours. All the stuff that you said honestly gave me goosebumps, because that's pretty much what, a sensible fan should think like that. It's not all Kepa's fault. There's so many other moving parts here. And I want to go to Manhandle now and sort of finish off this particular topic. And Joe kind of touched on it, but I want you to elaborate a little bit on this. Let's just say, for instance, we get Onana, and he comes in, and it's the same defense. It's the same philosophy when it comes to defending. Is it just going to magically just change, and we're not going to concede anymore? And all of a sudden, we're going to have a whole heap of clean sheets, and all those save percentages are going to increase all of a sudden. I mean, is that how we're meant to think about this thing? If Onana comes in, that's what's going to happen?
No, and I think, again, go back to Jay's eloquent answer. I think he's not going to be the quick fix that we hope he's going to be, unless we sort out our defence, which is a massive priority in this transfer window. Left back, centre back, unless that's sorted, bringing in the goalkeeper is a little bit redundant, because that may be part of our issue. And again, I go back to your points about Kepa. He doesn't come out enough. I mean, that Newcastle goal, the one we conceded in the last minute, I'm not saying he has to come out and collect that, but the way he just stood on his line and he kind of just fumbled in. Yeah. I'm not blaming him entirely, because the defence should have dealt with the first and second ball better. But it's just an example of, maybe it's confidence, maybe he doesn't know whether to come or go. Again, it's a defender's. He's thinking, are they going to deal with it? Am I going to deal with it? So, Onana's not going to come in and completely solve that issue. And again, reactionary is a fantastic point. I like a lot of Chelsea fans and a lot of other fans do that, and they need someone to kind of blame. But I feel one person who doesn't get enough blame is Rudiger in terms of the centre-backs. He played a lot of last season. I'm not trying to bash him, but for me, it's kind of his indecision. Then you've got one of the other guys. I thought Zuma, Tomori, Christensen did better than Rudiger. But even them at times, if they go missing when the position's not quite right, Kepa is not decisive enough, in my opinion.
You'd see. Sorry to cut you off, man. You will see many times when there's set pieces. Obviously Rudiger played a lot of matches at the end of before the lockdown. He played quite a few matches. You'd think someone with his experience was going to really stand up, take the leadership, manage the backline, organize everything when set pieces are happening, much like what Virgil van Dijk does for Liverpool. He talks, Alisson and him are talking, organizing. He's always pointing, Virgil van Dijk. So it's a good point that you bring up that, where was all that from Rudiger? And no one even talks about that.
That's one of my main issues with him. I say I hate criticising Chelsea players, but for me, he's the guy that you needed to stand up and really be counted, and he didn't do enough for me. I mean, forget his weaknesses as a centre-back. We've not got the best defence in the league, and under Lampard, we're probably not going to be that. But I just expected a bit more. And Lampard is an attacking coach. He's shown in the 2 years that he's been a manager. He's clearly someone who wants to get on the front foot, be on the ball, be quick in transition, get the wing-backs up the pitch, and be entertaining to watch. But that doesn't mean you can neglect the back line. And I don't think he's the best in terms of defensive manager or coach, but he has been let down by his players. And I think it's partly youth. It's partly the fact that he kept chopping and changing because he didn't even know his best back five or his best couple of centre-backs, which never helps. I mean, I'll use Liverpool and Man City as an example. Both of them in the last couple of seasons had fantastic defensive records. Yeah. They've got some great defensive players. Alisson and Ederson are two of the best keepers in the world. But you take Alisson out of that team, like they did this season, and Adrian comes in, competent keeper. I'm not saying Onana's as his level. I think Onana's a little bit above that. But he came in, and you saw in the games that he played, there was a little bit of indecision. Van Dijk and Gomez or Matip, they looked a little bit more on the ropes. I'm not saying they fell apart, but that 3-0 Watford game, does that happen? Does that happen with? Sorry about my face. Just okay. Apologies about that. But does that happen? Yeah, does that happen with Alisson in goal? I'm not so sure. So for me, it's and I go back to Man City. When Ederson was injured and, when Man City weren't producing the goods up the top of the pitch, their defence came out under a little bit more scrutiny and they struggled. So I think Chelsea are not the only team to have problems at centre-back issue. There's loads of other teams in the league, but it's certainly something that a goalkeeper can help with.
No, spot on, man. Well said from both of you guys. I think at the end of the day, what I captured from both of you guys is that if we want to talk about Onana as a competition, fair play. I think every position needs competition. But if we're going to talk about replacing, getting him in, he's going to change all our defensive issues and whatnot, I think that's very, very far-fetched, and that's not being fair to Kepa entirely. So I want to now move on to the next topic, which is Timo Werner. I want to first go to Jai again on this one. I remember maybe around the January time during the transfer, obviously when we found out that the ban was over, a whole heap of euphoria across the fan base. Yes, we're going to ruin football again and we're going to sign 10 players this January window. And everyone was tweeting about who they want to bring in and whatnot. And one of the names that was being thrown around a lot, along with Sancho, was Timo Werner. I remember I was in the bandwagon as well. I wanted Timo Werner to come in. I thought that's the kind of marquee kind of signings that we need. But I guess that was the euphoria. That was the sense of being able to buy again and not really thinking and just going berserk about it. As days progressed and we settled down a little bit more, I think we started to understand, well, okay, what's our style? Does Werner fit in our style? Does he actually make sense for this Chelsea team? So what I want to ask you is, what's your thoughts around Timo Werner? And does he, from your understanding of the style that we are playing right now, I know it's very difficult to say, well, what is it exactly that Frank Lampard's trying to do, because we haven't really signed anyone. It's the transfer ban season. But from whatever you've seen and sort of understood what Frank's trying to do, does Timo Werner fit into that?
Yeah, I mean, so I watch a considerable amount of Bundesliga football. I keep my eye on it as well as Serie A. I like to follow Union Berlin as much as I can. But actually, last night I was watching the full game of Bayern versus Leipzig, which was 5-4 to Bayern in the end, and I was watching Timo Werner.
Wow.
And this was 2017, so 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
And the man is unbelievable. His first season in the Bundesliga, I think he scored 23, 24 goals that season. He was the highest scoring German. He is truly an elite prospect. He is a fantastic striker. But his role is different, and I don't think it would suit the club. I've been saying a lot on Twitter actually that we need to prioritize sensible transfers. We need to think really logically. We need to think with our heads, not with our hearts necessarily. Werner would be expensive. I think people saying that he's going to be 30, 50 million, that's not happening. There's no chance. Leipzig are a smart club. They're well run. There's no way that's working. We don't operate in the same way as Liverpool. Werner will slot into Liverpool perfectly. He likes to drift. And
he's mentioned that he wants to kind of play for Klopp. I think he's mentioned that in recent times.
Yeah, because the style that the gegenpressing style that Klopp plays is similar to what Werner played under Hasenhüttl at Leipzig before Nagelsmann was there, and that style is quite inherent in Germany anyway. That high pressing, high tempo. We're going to completely go for it, all out attack. Watch us do this, and then when we defend, we sit and break. Right, that is characteristic of German football. That comes historically from people like Ralf Rangnick and people prior to him. So Werner's made in that mold where this guy's 6'1". He's as fast as you like, super physical, and his finishing is incredible. But he likes to drift. He's not just a striker. He drifts in from the left. He could do what Aubameyang does in a way that drifts in from the left and gets the goals there. I don't think that's what Chelsea are going to do. We have Pulisic to play there. We've got Hudson-Odoi to play there. I think it'd be counterintuitive to bring Timo Werner into the club now when we have other priorities. I've been saying this for ages on Twitter. We have other priorities. We have a left back is number one for me. It is so key that we bring in a left back that's actually decent because, like I mentioned earlier about Onana knowing what he's doing because of the cultural sort of philosophy of Ajax. Chelsea's cultural philosophy has changed a lot since 2003, obviously when we got a lot of money. We were okay before that, but we weren't what we are now. So Chelsea sometimes, and I was going to mention it when Manhandled was talking about a centre-back, I think we need to bring in a centre-back where the whole club and the players go, wow, this guy is a winner. This guy, because that's what we're used to, right? We had Drogba, but we bought in Torres. Do you know what I mean? These players that come in and we're like, oh my goodness, this guy's amazing. The players need to have that factor that we can bring in these big players. But Werner doesn't fit for me personally. I'd much rather us try and go for Sane, bring Boga back. I'm not even that fussed about Jadon Sancho because I want the club to be smart and I want the club to be well run. 400 grand a week is what has been banded around for Sancho's wages. That's ridiculous. There's no point.
It's insane.
It's not worth it because we can work on a system over a number of years that can do better than the output that Sancho could bring to a club. And also, he's not played in the Premier League, and he again plays in a system, in a position, in a top club in a strong league. But the league's not quite what the Premier League is, in my opinion. And I watch it enough to think. To know. Werner, brilliant, but he will go to somewhere like Liverpool where they press and they attack and they exploit the spaces, and he is electric. And if he came to the club, it'd be unbelievable. But I think that would change the dynamic of what we're trying to go for and what Frank's working with. You can see with we didn't sign anyone in January, even though we could. And there's a brilliant video by Tifo Football. I don't know if you guys ever watch those on YouTube.
Yeah, I love them, man. I love them.
They're brilliant guys. They've done a video on how we signed Ziyech, and we've been tracking him for years, and we decided not to buy anyone in January because we're still prioritizing players. So that tells me that we're trying to be well run. Yeah, smart, really sensible. I've been banging the drum to bring Boga back, not because I think he's the most amazing player, but for 12 million, get him on the wing when we need him to replace someone like Pedro. They can come in, they can affect the game, they're direct, they can dribble, shoot from distance, and that's 12 million. The wages will be lower, and that's smart, and that's a position there. He will clearly grow. He'll develop into a great player. There's no point spending 150 million and 400 grand a week on a player that, if it doesn't work, you have lost so much money. You can build a club and a squad in a smart way. Look what Klopp does.
Yeah.
You have to rely. Look what he done to Robertson. He got him for what, 5 mil?
5 million from Hull City. Hull City.
Yeah. You have to rely on the fact that your manager can develop and make players better. Mourinho doesn't do that now. He just buys class players. But Pep bought in Bernardo Silva, for example, who was a good player, but Pep's made him a great player. Klopp has turned Robertson into a world-class player. Fabinho came in, was a bit shaky. Now he's a world-class centre mid. It takes even when Salah joined Liverpool, he was good, but he wasn't world-class.
He wasn't world-class.
Chelsea fans were like, "What's going on? You know, he's all right, but why have you bought him?" And look what he done. You have to.
Firmino as well. Like when Firmino came from
and Mane came from Southampton doing well, but not this good. Not one of the best wingers in the world. We have to give Lampard players that he wants, and I don't think we should be so reactionary as to just chase Werner and Sancho because they're the new shiny toy that's getting goals and assists at the moment. We need to not think for the next season, but for 3 seasons. Boga's really young. In 3 seasons' time, he might be really good and would cost 45 million, but we can bring him back for 12 million. And he's an effective player that can come on when we need him to. He provides competition. Players in training know how good he is. And that's a smart acquisition. With a striker, I understand we might have to spend a bit more, and that's fine. With a centre-back, same goes. Possibly have a left-back as well. I think, personally, Ian Maatsen should maybe get the backup role. I am deviating from your question about Werner, I understand, but
that's all right. I'm enjoying it, man. I'm loving it.
My point is that there's no point being so reactive as to just get the new hot property, because that doesn't always work. And actually, if you look at big moves across Europe that have happened in the last 2 to 3 seasons, it's very hard to think of the big moves that have worked besides Van Dijk and Alisson. Coutinho has struggled where he went. Ousmane Dembele has struggled wherever he's gone. These big moves, it's not the smartest thing. We need to prioritise football for us, not just the shiny new smart toy that's getting goals and assists somewhere else because they might not fit the system and fit the role. Because Sancho's also playing with Royce, and he's playing with Julian Brandt, and he's playing with quality players that I think Dortmund side's better than Chelsea side at the moment. Timo Werner's being managed by Nagelsmann, who's the best young coach in the world, and RB Leipzig's side is incredibly good. People forget how they are a smart club. Those players are unbelievable. Like Upamecano's been the best centre-back in the Bundesliga this season. Werner's been one of the best strikers on the planet this season. They're not a weak side. They are brilliant. You saw what they've done to Spurs. They just turned them over. And Spurs have had a dodgy season, but Spurs are not a bad side. So it's just, you have to think really logically. I think Ziyech will fit our system, but I don't think Werner will fit the system that Lampard's going for. And for me, that's a waste of money when we could just be smart and buy elsewhere.
Nah, man, that's supremely well said. I think that's exactly, I mean, you've said it in such an intellectual manner. And that's exactly how I was sort of thinking about the whole Werner thing, that our style at the moment just doesn't fit the way he plays. And if we do get him, as you said, then we would need to adopt a style that sort of fits that game. Because he's not going to play like Didier Drogba. Werner's not going to be Didier Drogba up front, bullish, strong, throw the ball at me, I'll chest it, I'll spin some defenders around. He ain't going to do that. So what I want to now ask CFC Man Handle is, there's obviously some talks about Werner. Like there's always been some interest and, triggering his release clause and whatnot. How viable, and I know we've been talking about debunking some of these transfer, rumors that's been going around, and how viable is this? Like, legitimately speaking, is this a realistic target for us, actually?
Yeah, I did a video on Twitter yesterday which kind of said Chelsea fans need to be a little bit more realistic in terms of
it's banging, by the
way. What do they think what Chelsea are going to do this transfer window? Now, for me, we've been linked with several strikers, Jovic on loan, Werner, Dembele, and now obviously more recently Martinez. Obviously, he's clearly the most expensive of the four. But you know, some great points by Jay on Werner, and I wrote a little bit on it as well. I don't particularly think he fits our style of play. If we have a front three that continually moves around like a Liverpool, that interchange positions, I think that would work a bit more. But the fact that we've for so long been kind of, you know, the Drogba style, one man up front, and whilst Abraham does come a little bit deep and does sometimes drift a little bit, he generally is our focal point up front, kind of the guy that we look to as your classic striker. So, yeah, I don't think Werner would particularly fit the style of play. You know, he's not going to cost as much as Martinez, but I think Martinez just brings a little bit more to us. Can play on his own, can play as a second, and I just think, for me, Werner, you know, coming from the Bundesliga, which, you know, I don't watch as much as Jay and other people, but for me, whilst they're good defensively, it's not the same as the Premier League. The tempo is completely different. The style of play is completely different. I'm not saying Werner wouldn't adapt and wouldn't do well, because I think he would do fantastic. But yeah, it's about utilising his strengths in a Chelsea side that plays a little bit differently to what he would need. So yeah, again, I always drum on about our defence being the priority, but we do need a striker. We do need to provide competition for Tammy. Giroud having another 1-year deal, if that happens, it is not gonna solve that issue. So, you know, and I was listening to Jay's transfer roundup, really interesting about, you know, the other players, about Boga coming in instead of Sancho. I'm all for that as well, because we can't expect to pay ridiculous, you know, fees all over the pitch and wages. So yeah, I mean, Ziyech is a great addition. He's going to clearly add a lot of quality to our front line, but. Yeah, these Werner interest, or the interest, because the talks with the agent that have suddenly reappeared. For me, if it happens, you know, I'm not going to throw my toys at the pram. I'm not going to be, you know, really upset that Chelsea have gone to spend loads of money on a fantastic striker. But in terms of, you know, I think of this Chelsea side as a puzzle. We've got we're halfway. I think we've got some missing pieces. Is he the perfect fit? He's probably got a few rough edges for me. He's not going to slide into the slot exactly what how we need. And again, Onana's the same for me. Is he exactly what we need? I don't know. So yeah, quality player, can bring a lot of to the Chelsea team, can score a lot of goals. But I just feel some of the other targets may make a little bit more sense for me going forward.
Miz, if you don't mind, if I can chime in just really quickly, sorry to interrupt, but I think as well, there's, and I'm just thinking about it now, and I've thought about it previously. So last season, my girlfriend and I went to watch Inter Milan at San Siro. I got a chance to watch Martinez play. I've seen Jovic play. I've seen Werner play. I was watching it last night. And the thing with those three players, and I think fans are really missing this, and it goes back to the system that we play, is all of those three players have predominantly played in a two-up-top system, which is really quite rare. And you look at what happens when you break that that system that they play, they struggle. Like Haller's gone to West Ham, has struggled because he's on his own. Jovic has struggled because he's on his own. Martinez has less goals and assists by one than Tammy, and he plays in a two with Lukaku, right? So if he's taken out of that, it might struggle. And Timo Werner, in his first season in the Bundesliga 2017, he was top scoring German, but he relied on Yusuf Poulsen to bring the ball down and to lay it off for him. Poulsen got about 6 goals, but got quite a few assists, but contributed a lot into allowing Werner to play. If we don't do that at all and I don't know if any of those three players would actually fit the bill, I'm going to get myself in a sticky situation, because I don't know who to replace him with. Or I don't know who to bring in. I honestly don't know which striker we could bring in, but I don't actually think either of those three may be the smartest. Just because they're exciting, they're being linked with Barcelona. Chelsea fans want them to be linked with Chelsea. But that's not how you need to do things. And again, I'm going to get probably fans be annoyed that I talk about Liverpool, but I think they're the smartest run club in the world at the moment, besides maybe Bayern Munich.
I agree.
And if they went out and they sourced Robert Firmino, who wasn't linked with Barcelona, he wasn't linked with Real Madrid, he was at Hoffenheim playing great, and they saw that he fit the system. We need to be that advanced and have our scouts out and about that notice someone that maybe we haven't noticed or seen because they're not in the headlines. But wow, look at this guy's numbers. He's doing great. He's quite young. He fits the system. Look at his traits, his physicality, his ball playing skills, and he might be able to slot in. And it'd be really interesting. And I also wrote a piece about Armando Broja in the youth team. And I said in that piece that it would be really interesting, perhaps in pre-season, to try Broja and Tammy as a two-striker pairing, just to see how Tammy would play in a two-striker. Because you can see that Tammy's leading the line well, but sometimes he's on his own and he needs the other player. Like when he chests that ball off to Mount and Mount volleys it in, that's a great goal. And that's a skill that Tammy has that maybe doesn't get utilised enough because there's no one around him. So if we were to bring in Martinez, I'd play 2 up front, but then that means taking players out in the midfield, which is perhaps our strongest bit. So there's so many ifs and buts. But with with Werner, with Martinez, and anyone else, we have to be careful with and Jovic, sorry. They're used to playing in a 2 up top, and when they play on their own, it might be different. Like Haller struggled, Jovic has struggled. Werner comes in off the left now, but he still relies on other players around him. So it's a really tough one, and Chelsea fans really, really need to just rely on the process and the scouting that we've got, and just hope that they bring in someone that's intelligent, that's an intelligent buy that fits the system, I think.
So well said from both of you guys. I think the thing that I wanted to say was that with a player like Werner, as both of you guys have said, great if we buy him and he could come in, but he could easily get found out very quickly in the Premier League and also in a system where he has not played. He's playing in a very different system in Leipzig. He comes to Chelsea, which is totally different style. And then very quickly, someone as shiny as Werner could just end up looking like a very, very ordinary player. And we know, we've seen how our fan base is. You have a string of bad games, and someone like Werner who gets, talked so highly about, and they'll just bring him straight down and make him look like an average player. And that's why I think, Werner himself, in recent times, have actually mentioned that he enjoys watching Liverpool play, which tells me he knows his strengths and weaknesses. He knows what he can do, and he sees that that's the kind of sort of style that he can flourish in. And as both of you guys have said, that there's so many players that have gone into other Premier League clubs who's had great seasons previously in other leagues, have not really had great seasons in the Premier League because maybe it just wasn't the right team, the right style. I know there's a lot of talk about this Lautaro Martinez thing, and I'll conclude it here. I'll get your last final opinion on it. That, yes, he plays in a 2-man with Lukaku, and that's why he shines. But if he comes to Chelsea, he's going to... the kid's young. So do we not see that certain players can adapt as well? I'll start off with Manhandle CFC on this one. Like, can we just rule off any sort of transfers by saying, well, they don't really play in the Chelsea style right now, so don't really know if they will suit? Like, can we not envisage that perhaps maybe they could fit in?
I completely take Jay's point, and I understand why people would think Martinez and quite a few others can't play that system. It is a very unique system, and as I said, it goes back to the Drogba years when he came in. That talisman that leads the line. But for me, Martinez has played in the 2. A lot with Lukaku. I mean, Lukaku's had a few injuries, so he's had to adapt a little bit. Martinez, but for me, I'm going to go to one of his international counterparts, Aguero. I think he can be of that mould. Can be the sort of striker that comes in and can score plenty of goals. Now, yes, it will take time to adapt. I just feel of the 3, he's probably the one I'd go for, and I've stuck my head out and said that a few times. So nothing against Werner. The Bundesliga is probably a stronger league than the Serie A as well. But I just think for his age, it's not nothing to do with the links of other clubs and fees and wages. I just feel that that he could possibly, it is still a gamble as with any of them. I mean, even Jovic on loan, that's a low risk move, but he's clearly lost a lot of confidence. So being on the Madrid bench and having so few minutes. So, and again, great point by Jay about players coming from playing in a two to playing on his own. Is any of them Werner, Martinez going to be able to do that? I don't know. I think Werner, will help, or will be better suited in an interchangeable front three, and probably Martinez as well, or playing with someone. But again, Abraham playing up top with a two. I mean, we did it a couple of times this season when we were chasing goals. Batshuayi is not really the sort of striker to do that with, in my opinion. But I think it's certainly something that Lampard needs to have as a plan B at least, because again, I don't want to take away players from the midfield or take a player off the wing to kind of stick two up top, because we need more creativity. That's where we are going to be strong next season. Yes, we haven't been clinical enough, but yeah, I just feel whoever we go for, we've got to back. It'll be really interesting what we do. And again, another point, Jay's made some great points today about our scouting system. There's probably loads of players that we have no idea that we're tracking. They've got scouts all over the world. We have no idea. Us as fans, we can speculate. We can go by the rumours from the newspapers and from social media outlets. But really and truly, that Ziyech one pretty much came out of nowhere. We had no idea really that was going on. So I'm sure we've got a couple of our back pocket, and we just have to trust the process.
No, well said. I'll give the final word to Jay before we wrap it up. It's the same question that I've asked Manhandle is, would you not be able to picture some of these players playing in a sort of single man up front?
I could see that, and I think it's an argument that's kind of age old. The best players overcome and adapt and work to the best systems, but there's other questions surrounding those players. For me, I think Dembele from Lyon would be a good shout, because they play a system that suits us. His numbers are fantastic. Even the midfield mirrors what we do to some sort of degree. And yeah, we have to believe in our scouts, and we have to believe in the club and what they're going to do. And I don't want players come into this club that see it as a stepping stone, because in my head, I'm only 22, so I've been fortunate enough to see Chelsea have the best time for the majority of my football viewing. I don't want players coming to this club that see it as a stepping stone to Real Madrid or Barcelona. Martinez is linked with Barcelona, so if he's coming to Chelsea, in my head, I'm thinking he's looking at 2 years, he's going Barcelona. Whereas if Dembele comes, he's come from Lyon, he's gone Celtic, Lyon, Chelsea. Now he's in the biggest city in Europe, the best club in that city. This might be it for him, and he wants to be there more so than maybe other players, and that is a fact that he may be slightly lower on the potential side, but his desire to play for the club perhaps would be greater. He doesn't see it as a stepping stone. He plays on his own. His numbers are unbelievable. He plays with tricky players around him, Cornet, Traore, Depay. We would have Hudson-Odoi, possibly Boga, someone else. You've also got Pulisic. The styles match up. We're just slightly better in a more advanced league, and I think that would maybe be smarter, cheaper, lower wages, and would allow us to invest elsewhere. But I certainly wouldn't complain if we bought in the other players. I would just be hesitant to say this guy's going to carry us to the next stage, because we need to take time and trust the process over the next 2 to 3 years.
Man, well said from both you guys, man. I think once I stop recording this and load it all up, I think I'm going to watch it at least 3-4 times, because I got so much out of this, and I honestly I hope a lot of people watch this. I think this has been probably one of the most sensible group discussions I've had in a long time. So yeah, I really want to thank both of you guys. Thank you so much. Both of you guys will be back. There is no doubt. I'm going to have you guys back. I'm going to find you, as like what Liam Neeson says, like in Taken. Where you are. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to kill you. So I'm not going to kill you. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining today, and thank you for everyone that's been listening. Hope you guys had a great show, and until next time, see you later, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, see ya.